G'day, welcome back. This is the next video in the series Chess Statistics, where I look at an analysis of the game of chess more from a database and engine perspective rather than purely about chess itself. And today I'm looking at a fascinating topic, bishop under promotions. Now this has sort of come about because I've been doing a lot of work on endgames, and the idea of unpromoting, i.e. not promoting to a queen in endgame positions, why it's necessary, how it happens, how often it happens, all those sorts of things are obviously one of the topics which becomes quite interesting. Today I'm just looking at bishop under promotion. Obviously there's a whole topic here involving rook and knight under promotions, which are, to be honest, the more normal under promotions, because a rook often, just because it doesn't have the diagonal, is better than a queen and you can still checkmate. And a knight often can promote with check in those instances. So bishop is definitely the rarest one. Kind of a quick look at the approach I took for systematically looking at all the under promotions to bishop and some of the conclusions we can draw. Now, there's been work done on this before. There's a couple of blogs around. Sam Copeland did one, all that sort of stuff, right? They just look at selected games, but I was trying to do a bit more comprehensive analysis of it. Okay, so let me just go to my capture screen and you get a bit of a sense of what we're going to be talking about. So, as I said, the reason why it's the most unlikely under promotion is because it's the least likely to be effective. In fact, I was using the Lumbres database. We'll get that in a second. Only about 60 games came up with a sensible bishop sacrifices. 40 of them are one particular position, so you can see how unlikely it is that you would do this in a sensible way. And obviously the main reason it works is it's the whole thing about promoting a bishop. It's much less likely to stalemate a king in certain positions. So what I might do is have a look at this, perhaps the most famous under promotion example first, just to get a sense of what we're talking about. So this is the Reshko-Kaminsky game. Just let me bring that up. You briefly see all the games there, by the way. And we go to the key position here, which is just an amazing position. Okay, so black has this nasty check. So it's check, and when the queen takes back, because the new queen blocks the escape of the black king to the back rank, that is why you can't promote to a queen or a rook. So we get back to the original position, and the winning line is to promote to a bishop. And then now there's not a lot the black can do. The check is no longer causing stalemate. Queen drop back anywhere, and obviously the extra piece will be enough for white to win. I mean, here's a line that's forced the exchange of queens, and then now it's an easy endgame with an extra piece. Now, the other possibility, if you go back here, is why not a knight then? And let's have a look what happens if you go to a knight. Go to a knight, and then now what black needs to do is needs to keep this knight trapped, so that if the knight can't get away, then white can't make any progress. So queen a7 is the only square that actually keeps tabs on those two squares. And then now, typical continuation. I mean, the problem is that white can't let go of that square, otherwise it get checkmated. So, and then he's got to hold that square, and he's got to hold the knight. It just makes it very difficult all round. Typical line is actually to exchange of some pawns like this. Check there, hold the knight, take the pawn, and the computer agrees that if you draw, I mean, if nothing else, with all these checks, probably might pick up this pawn, right? So that's why the promoting to knight doesn't work in this case. Now, what we're going to find in a lot of cases is that if the only thing about promoting to a rook or a queen is like the stalemate trap, then often bishop and knight promotions can be interchangeable. In this case, they weren't. That's why this example is so famous in terms of being, there's only, we call it brilliancy, because only the underpromote to bishop enabled you to win the game. Okay, so that's just sort of an example. So let's now just sort of go through my notes here. What do I actually do so you can understand? Use this Lumber database. I think I use the overboard version of it, so I think it's about 9 million games. And then what I do is use Scoutfish to find all the bishop under promotion. So let's just quickly have a look at some of the code here for that. Okay, so what I effectively do is I do a streak search, although actually I automated for all the squares. Basically, for instance, on the white side, looking for white move A8. Some issues because I couldn't quite do the UCI coding properly. Do I put a B on the end or not? It could be a check, all that sort of thing. This can be covered anyway. White move A8, and then use the subfen search. So it's got to be white move A8, and then the subfen has to match, and then basically it just matches. It's got to be bishop on A8, and then I do B8, which would be 1, B6, and so on. And then I do it for the black side as well. So the black move would be A1, and the subfen would actually be, in that case, B, small b7 as the rank number 1. So basically I feed all these queries in. That's what this bit of code here does. It feeds it through 8 times A8, B8, C8, and for each of those squares, actually, there is about 100 games, 150 games, where there's been an underpromotion on each of those squares, which is quite a bit, adds up to about 1,000 games. Okay, so that's the first step in the analysis. And then what I do is use Stockfish to analyze it, because basically, so many of these underpromotions, they're not necessary. It's like the piece is about to be taken after promoted, so it doesn't matter what you promote to. It could be somebody trying to sort of get the starting material position or something, so just not necessary. And it might be a bishop promotion which leads to a win, but there might be many other ways of doing it. Particularly often in a lot of these, you'll see that there might be a stalemate trap, but if you just move another piece or the king or something, then it's not stalemate, and then you get your queen or your rook the next move. Anyway, so basically what I do is use Stockfish to go to the position of the underpromotion, and then just analyze to about depth 20, and then skim off all the ones where the underpromotion to a bishop wasn't necessary. I also capture underpromotion knights. I keep those just to sort of, it's quite interesting that there's a few where both of those pieces, the underpromotion works. We'll have a look at a couple of those. So it's basically the approach in terms of finding the real underpromotions. So after you've filtered it out, you get about 60. And as I said, there's 3 types of them here. So let's have a look first of all at the rook endgame position. So here we go, here's all the games. And you notice put a flag here. Can you see that? These exclamation marks, the ones we're going to look at next, they're the really good ones. They're that only bishop promotion works. And these are the question mark ones. It's not a blunder. It's actually the same rook position where actually it's a standard technique of winning for the stronger side. So let's have a look at that. Save that. Okay, and actually it could be this position. It could be this corner. It could be this corner. It could be this corner and this corner. Basically, it's a rook pawn and a knight pawn. And if you go back one move, you can see it's a rook endgame, and black has been advancing, and with the white king in the corner, this is the final trick. So rook there. Okay, that's cool. So obviously it's going to queen, so you take that. If you promote to a queen or a rook, it'll be stalemate. Actually, both a knight and a bishop promotion work here, but most people go to the bishop, and then so because it's always going to be a c-file, you're always going to have the right colored bishop, and that will be a win. So, in fact, there's another way of doing it. So just go back a couple of moves. Let me see how many moves I have to go back. Okay, let's look at this position where we'll assume black has just sacrificed his rook. You take it, you go check, and I guess that's the only move. Now you take a bishop again, and that's a win. So you can actually sacrifice the rook first, although I must say, in most cases people do not do that, and they just do the banal moving the rook up when the pawn is already on b2 in this case. So there's about 40 of those positions, right? If you have a look at that, all these ones question marks, that's where people use this bishop underpromote. Knight underpromote also works to win the game. Otherwise, it's not so easy. Okay, cool. So now let's go and have a look at the real good ones, one by one. We can do them one by one. So this is Goldstone versus Janikov. Save that. Okay, so let me go to the position. Right, now, this goes, it's very much all stalemate themed here, threatening the rook. And if you go to a rook or a queen, then obviously you're blocking it in, and the white king there is covering the escape squares. That would be stalemate. Right, now, this is a really special one, because if you promote to a knight here, it actually ends up being a draw, unfortunately, because white will promote to queen, black will promote to queen, it'll be knight and a queen against a queen, and that should be drawn. So the only way to win is to promote to a bishop, which is what the black player did, and the game finished, because now you've got the bishop will be able to get back, sacrifice itself on the c8 square, and then you've got the little pawn to promote. So that's really good. That's a very good example of only way to win bishop under promotion. So let's go to the next one. So now we've got Mareni Bolvari. Let's go to the under promotion situation. Okay, here's the position. Once again, only promote to bishop wins. If you promote to a knight, then you've got 2 knights, and you can't win that. And if you promote to a queen or a rook, then it's stalemate straight away, because you can see the knight's covering that square, so you can't promote to rook. Yeah, promote to bishop. Excellent, good. Now, the funny thing about this is normally say, okay, now you have to be able to checkmate with the bishop and knight, but nicely the black king is already stuck in the corner. So, I mean, the game continuation was king a1, king b3, king b1, keep the king trapped in the corner that way, check, checkmate. Okay, so that worked pretty well. That was a very nice under promotion. Let's move to the next one I've got here, that next brilliancy. So this is save that change. Bogdano versus Brown. Let's go to the under promotion thing. This is really study-like as well, by the way. This is really clever. Okay, so same problem. If you promote to a rook or a queen, you will be stalemating the black king. Only one winning move. Promoting to the knight doesn't work. What'll happen is that pawn will queen, that pawn will queen, and you'll have a queen and a knight, an extra pawn, will basically be a drawn position. So the winning move is, as played, promote to a bishop. Now, it doesn't make a difference. White actually resigned here, but the continuation would be, just follow continuation, get the king out of the corner, cover the corner square, promotes, takes, and then now you're going to promote your queen. So that's quite cool. So you can see these bishop promotions, basically it's you need a long range bishop to stop the white or black from queening, and then you need the bishop because it doesn't stalemate the person. Okay, let's have a look. We've got another one here. These are really good. These are really enjoyable games to look at. That's why I'm sort of going through them one by one. Let's go to the relevant position here. Okay, now this is quite a weird one. This is the other sort of thing I said with stalemate, because this is the frozen piece idea that if you promote to a rook or a queen, then you pin the knight to the king, and that would be stalemate. And once again, the only way to win here, I mean, if you lose your b-pawn, then I think black can organize a defense. So the way to do it is to promote to a bishop, which is what the player did. And then now the threat is actually checkmate. So we've got to stop that. Only one real way of stopping that. So you get knight c6, and now you bring your knight up, and you're actually starting to threaten checkmate. Take the bishop, then we go 1, 2, checkmate. So you can't afford to take the bishop. So the move played is went to e7 check, and that's the way. And now once again, it's actually made in 13 because the king cut on the side, but once again, your bishop and knight, and the only way to get to that position, get to the winning position, was to underpromote to a bishop. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we go to the next one, Kostic versus Velkovic. Let's go to the relevant position. And this is very thematic, isn't it? Once again, you've got the king blocking, so you can't take and make a queen or rook, but we're about to promote here. So once again, you could go to bishop, and then typical continuation is king out of the way, cover the queening square, and then you've got the pawn. This one is this one actually knight promotion does work as well, but I included because I think this one I really like this one. It's quite famous. This one's in a few positions, right? So once again, you can't take the rook with a queen or rook because the bishop's then a pin piece and it'll be stalemate. But once again, what's going to happen is that black's position is so bad after that can't do anything about it. Okay, so just play that move. Now black's still stalemated, so he's got to move his bishop, and he can't move his bishop up this diagonal because he just gets checkmated, so he's got to stuck in a way, and we can't take it because that would be stalemate once again. So best thing to do is check, take the bishop, check, and then now we'll win. This one's not as pure because here's if you underpromote to a knight, that also wins. It's a little bit more convoluted, right? Because once again, you've got to move the bishop because your king's blocked in, and you're not going to move the bishop there. So bishop d7, bishop there. So bishop d7 makes sense. And now it's just a case of checking, and the bishop's actually very poorly placed, so doesn't really have a lot of squares to go to. And I think you could say this position would be, you didn't need that long range bishop to pick up a pawn or whatever, right? But basically you win in a sort of trivial fashion going on. Okay, so that's the main brilliancies, but you can see there's a lot of examples which are marked with a T. Let's go through a few of those and see what other typical examples are, just to get some ideas on these endgames when you're talking about bishop or a knight unpromotional work. So let's go to the key position here. Okay, here we go. If you promote to a take it and take a queen or rook, obviously it's stalemate. So what you got to do is promote to a bishop or a knight. You'll be able to force your pawn through. I mean, it should be fairly straightforward, which is what happened in the game continuation. Right, easy enough to promote the pawn in that situation. So that's a fairly easy one to understand. Read with this other one. Keep going through these. Pretty good. Okay, this sort of theme we've seen once again. Can't take it. It'll be stalemate. If we go to a knight or a bishop, then we've got an easy king and pawn endgame. But and if you don't do that, then you might find you're losing. So keep going. Here's the position. Once again, the king is blocked in. And funnily enough, if you take the rook, then the pawn's pinned and it will be stalemate, right? A little bit of another wangle to that, but game played in the move. You just promote to for a knight. And no problems with that one. Okay, we've seen this theme quite a few times. That if we took it with a queen or a rook, then there'd be a stalemate trick. But we have the extra pawn over here, also promoting. So basically, easiest with bishop, but also with knight. But the game continuation was with bishop. And moves his king out of the way. Got a queen, check, and then now we're going to take his queen off the board. Now we've got Mai versus Mungo. Same idea. Black king doesn't have a lot of squares, so you just promote to a bishop. That's straightforward. Once again, promote to a bishop. Otherwise, it would have been stalemated. So that's a very easy way of doing it. And once again, you could have gone to a knight or a bishop. But other moves don't work. Because, for instance, so just to show this, if you took the pawn, then this is going to be a drawn endgame. King b7, and then check, king b6, and go back. And no progress can be made there. We've got Reshko-Kaminsky, quite young at the time. Under 12, World Championship under 12. Okay, these guys were good when they were young. We've got this position, and obviously, Reshko can't take it because that'll be stalemate once again. But it's a simple process, promote to bishop, and that's it. That's a win. So these things you can see that actually in endgames you should know this as a resource, even if you don't. Same position here. This is going to be the right coloured bishop. Okay, so definitely need to know that one. And this is just a variant of that rook endgame earlier. Just promote to a bishop and you're winning. And this one. Let's just have a look at this last one at the bottom, see what it looks like. And quite funny that, all these squares are covered, so we can't promote, but obviously thing is just take with the bishop. So I think a lot of those examples, you saw that it's very much a case of don't fall in the trap of stalemating the king, and the bishop as the long range piece is the one that, in many cases, is actually more effective than a knight. What it doesn't do is give you that check or fork when it underpromotes. So in later videos, obviously, I'm going to try and look at underpromotions of rooks and underpromotions of knights. Okay, so I know that went on a little bit, but I just wanted to, I'm not going to look at these games again, probably, so it was just good to sort of say I got 60 games out of this filtering process, and we've got a lot of good games, and you can see that underpromotion of bishop, something which happens quite a lot in that rook endgame position, otherwise is extremely rare, but does happen from time to time. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting, and thank you very much for watching.